All right, welcome back to Getting Past the Premium, everybody. We've got an exciting episode today with Daniel Metcalf from CyberFin. And so I'm excited to have this talk and bring this to everybody because this is such a hot topic right now for really any business owner. But the business that we're in, cyber liability is such a complex product, but also something that every business needs. And doesn't have to be that complex. And so wanted to bring Daniel on to talk about what they're doing at CyberFin, how that applies to our clients, and what we can be doing to bring those solutions to our clients. So with that, Daniel, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks. I'm honored to be here. Thanks so much for the time.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. So walk everybody through. I mean, you guys have an interesting background in how you started, why you started, and where you're at today. So walk everybody through kind of the genesis of CyberFin.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So, again, I'm Daniel Metcalf. I'm the managing partner and co-founder of CyberFin. I'm known as the geek at CyberFin because I do a lot of continuing education courses. I'm the guy that goes and tries to find ways to solve business challenges related to technology and insurance and financial services industry. So since
Yeah.
2013, I've been working in the insurtech industry with multiple capacities around individual health, ancillary health, life insurance lines. And then in 2016, I started consulting and delivering cybersecurity services to the financial services organizations. We were born out of insurance. So we were building cybersecurity services as well as compliance in order to help protect the insurance agencies themselves from both the crimes and the fines. And what correlated out of that a year and a half ago, some of our clients in the commercial space came to us and said, "Hey, all that you're doing for us is great, but is there a way that you could help my small to medium-sized business clients, help me grow my commercial lines? Can you help
Hmm.
bring this same expertise to our client base? Because they're starving for it. We're
Yeah.
starving as another way of being able to drive revenue, drive opportunity, right? Protect our customers. And so the rest was history. So we started working with different insurance agencies, help them develop a cyber assessment and cyber tools that we can provide to the small to mid-sized business customers that they have to help them not only put the protocols in place, but also get better cyber liability coverage, better premiums, and be able to just provide more value to their customers.
Yeah, that's super intriguing. I think anybody that sells cyber has been in this situation. You get the insurance carrier's supplemental apps, and you're like, this is foreign language, right?
Right, right.
So what always happens is the insured sends it to whoever does, if hopefully somebody that does their cybersecurity, and says, "Hey,
Yep,
fill this out for me," right?
right.
But I think where I was intrigued by what you guys do is you're coming at it from a different angle where you're engaging from the risk management or the insurance side of the table, right? It's like, just as
Right.
you mentioned there, if we can do the right things from a risk management perspective, we can get, better coverage, yeah, lower cost, more options, etc.
Yep.
So I want to hit on that a little bit further because
Sure.
again, that's a unique process where you're going through the agency to the client. So just talk through like how you do that. What tools are you providing to the agency so that they can bring this up to their client, and how does that look?
Yep. So there's a couple different ways we've been doing that. The first one that it starts with is, picking a few clients right off the bat that they know are coming with renewals, or they know they've had struggles to try to um, get engagement on a conversation, or even just like, hey, trying to find a way to round out their risk, right?
Yeah.
And we go side by side, and they offer a cyber assessment. It's a 30-minute cyber assessment that goes through, and it's a simpler version of underwriting, if you will, right? It's a
Yeah.
more simple version. You don't have to know a lot of technical pieces, but it lets me uncover really what's going on in the background and allows us to work together on showing them where their risks are, where where they're most vulnerable, where they could secure themselves, as well as a recommendation that client then can use, whether it's through us as a provider or one of their other IT professionals to be able to help with. That gives the value to the producer, where they can show extra value, but not any pressure for them to have to buy the protocols or buy the services through
Yeah.
CyberFin, but they still get to look like the risk management hero. From there, though, the second thing that we do is that we provide education courses. So we'll do lunch and learns, we'll do webinars, we have a nice little 30-minute presentation that shows the looming threats to small to medium-sized businesses going on in the country today. And it teaches them about what they should look for. We actually have an anatomy of an attack. So we actually go through what an attack would look like on a small
Oh
business, on a
yeah.
business email compromise. And then what putting the right protocols in place would do to what would do to either protect them from that attack or at least severely lower the impact of an attack. Because
Yeah.
as you know, it's not always, even if you put the right cybersecurity in place, it's not always an if, it's a when, right?
Yeah.
Even one that provides cybersecurity services, that truth stays in there. And then the third way is that we provide other ways that you can use materials, you can invite them to other education series that we have, other things that, or even if the client wants to have their own event for their own employees, right? We'll do other pieces to educate, because one of our core tenets at CyberFin is knowledge is power. And we know the more we educate, the more we talk about it, right? It's one of those things that not a lot of people like to talk about cybersecurity in their business and what's happened, right? It's just
Yeah.
so we just want to get everybody open up about it, because that's how we're going to take down these bad guys. We're going to take them down by all combining together and understanding what's going on in the criminal world and what you need to do to protect yourself.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Sticking your head in the sand is not a risk management strategy. Just to
No,
be clear.
no, the old adage, be faster than your slowest friend when the bear is chasing you, right? That there is a risk strategy there. But when it comes to cybercrime, the dollars are getting too high. The you know the loss of customers that we see due to the reputation after a cyber incident,
Yeah.
especially depending on the severity of it, that's really where it's just no longer a viable strategy just to be faster than the slowest friend.
Yeah. Totally. So, hit on a little bit how you do that assessment, because I think
Sure.
is that something that you provide to a producer to send to a client? Do they go through it
Yep.
with the client? How does that work?
Yep. So we do a side by side assessment. So it's done as it's a survey based assessment. So we're doing a video call or phone call
Yep.
together with the
Okay.
producer there, right? And then we're going to go through and we're going to walk through the assessment together. And then I'm going to or one of my team members will deliver the results first to the producer, and then and kind of show them what we're going to recommend, right? Allow us maybe to do a requote on cyber liability insurance from a couple carriers based on if they make these choices, so
Yeah.
that we can come with a comprehensive recommendation. And then they'll deliver the recommendation with us, and then kind of keep that customer and prospect in their best light.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I think that makes total sense. That's what I was wondering, because I could sense there's going to be several people out there that are like, I'm not going to know what the heck I'm talking about when I
Yeah,
have this
100%.
assessment.
And their customers have lost interest, and I'm sure the producers have too, about all these online assessments and all
Yeah.
these things that you can fill out. They're only as good as what you can fill out. That's why we really believed in doing this one-on-one, in person, putting a person to it that has the expertise and experience. It's worth it to for our core values to sit side by side and educate these clients and help them through it, rather than just another
Yeah.
form, another online assessment.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Okay. So this can be used. I think what I'm hearing and what I'm pulling out of this is that a traditional insurance producer can be providing a ton of value to your clients just by not just going in and asking, do you have cyber liability, but walking them through this process to help them understand this in more detail.
Mhm.
And then once they know where they might be lacking in cyber protocols or whatever, you would have a solution to also recommend to them, that again, you're not having to do anything to facilitate, but
Mhm.
you can be the person that's bringing that solution. I mean, is that typically what you find and how it kind of works?
Yep, absolutely. In many cases, what we've been saying to is like the looming threat to the producers is not just the cyber criminal. The
Yeah.
looming threat is your competition's out there trying to find ways to have these conversations about
Oh
the
yeah.
biggest threat to their business. So who's going to get seen as more valuable? The one that's bringing the expertise, that's bringing in the one-on-one consulting and consultation, right? The one-on-one white glove treatment, or the one that's just going to send another another online assessment from that
Yeah.
standpoint of it, right? And all it takes is 30 minutes of your client's time that they should be more than happy to want to go through this, because it's just one more thing to let them sleep better at night. And there's no obligation, no, there's no requirement or payment necessary for it. It's just an added value.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. I mean, added value. And like you said, I mean, it's something that every business needs to know and understand, because it's become such a massive risk
Right.
to any business, no matter the size. And this is something that I think we're in a position to be able to bring to clients based on what we do and how we do it. And so I think that's a great first step for everybody. So then talk through what you're finding just a bit, and then we're going to get into some of what you're actually seeing in these small business attacks.
Sure.
But that's sometimes the eye-opening stuff. But what are you typically finding as like low-hanging fruit, let's say, in those assessments? Like what are the main things that small businesses aren't thinking about right now,
Mhm.
or you're just seeing a massive gap in the market for what they should be doing?
Yep. So, in the IT world, they did a very good job of at least telling um, clients, hey, if you want to look, if you're looking at a cul-de-sac, right, and you've got or a circle, depending on where you live in the US, and you've got the one house that's dark and has the garage door open and the bikes are hanging out, or like they got some
Yeah.
expensive cars, or one's hanging out in the garage. Then the next one has a ring camera and, maybe some floodlights that automatically go on as you get closer. And then the other one has the, full security system with the signs and has everything, right? So small businesses are in that same, everybody's in those same levels, right? So at least IT said, hey, at the very least, go put on some antivirus and some multi-factor authentication, and at least you can maybe slow the bad guy down,
Yeah.
maybe, right? And so we saw that whole but they felt that should check the box and say I'm good,
Yeah.
and it is no longer that way, right? The cyber criminals. I mean, we saw a stat that at the end of 2023, that over 50% of all breaches to small to medium-sized businesses would have not have been prevented through multi-factor authentication. So that already tells you that, like, okay, the bad guys are already, right? Remember, they're in business too, right? They're
Yeah.
all in ROI. And they're like, hey, if this is worth it to them, they're going to find a way around some of these
Totally. Yeah.
protocols, right? And so we need to start moving more to the away from just the ring camera and the floodlights, and we have to start moving them more to the whole cybersecurity suite, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're seeing. There's still a lot of businesses that are just leaving the garage door open and the lights off because it's just easier, right? Some of them have started putting in ring cameras, which is great, but at the same time, they're still leaving themselves very vulnerable, and we're starting to see some of them move to the compliance, or to the full cybersecurity suite. Now, the other low hanging fruit are those that are under compliance requirements, right? So there are
Oh yeah.
if you go look, right, FTC, SEC, FINRA, HIPAA, like many of the, like each individual state's commerce departments, they're all now putting these
Yeah.
protocols in, right? New York, California, Washington State, they are starting to, change the game when it comes to what they're requiring businesses to do in order to protect their clients' data, right?
Yep.
Whatever happens on the coast, we know what happens as it goes through the rest of the country, right?
Yeah.
So anybody that has any of those types of compliance requirements and guidance, those are also low-hanging fruit, because I guarantee you the majority of them haven't even thought about what they need to go from being just protected, let alone being protected and compliant at the same
Yeah.
time. And we can help, we as part of our assessment, we do ferret a lot of that out for them as well, depending on what they're required to do. So auto dealerships, if you think about it, right? Small health practices,
Yeah.
IT company, other IT providers, MSPs, uh, financial planners, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Other spaces in which they collect very sensitive data that you wouldn't think about, right? Billing companies,
Oh,
that you
totally.
want to make
Yeah.
sure that, if you're taking any personal health information, personal identifiable information, or personal credit information, you're storing it or have to move it from side to side, they're under some type of regulation, right? So that's the also low hanging fruit that we see out there.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I think that, yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head, I think, with some of those things out there, and the analogy is perfect. And I agree with you. I mean, it used to kind of be like, don't be the low hanging fruit out there. Like, if you're the middle tier with the ring camera, like you're probably good because they're just gonna move on to the next one. Like they're not gonna work that hard. But I
Right.
think it just seems like the tools have gotten so sophisticated, the phishing attempts have gotten so sophisticated that that's just not enough anymore. And
Right.
And the biggest thing I think for an insurance producer out there is, your business owner clients can make any decision they want in their business, but be the person that is asking the right question and educating them so that they can make the right decision. For like
Correct.
the compliance example, I bet 98% of those companies want to be in compliance. They just have no idea how to, or that they even need to be in client
Right. Right.
in compliance. And so that can be very valuable to them, even if you're not selling anything additionally, right? You're
Correct.
solidifying a client relationship just because you're educating them.
And from
Uh,
prospecting standpoint, and that we didn't bring it, I failed to bring up the other items that we're using to help is from a prospecting perspective, think about, if you're talking to a new prospect or a new business owner, and you're bringing something up that they haven't even thought about or they haven't really want to talk to or their agent hasn't brought up to them up to that point from a risk management standpoint. And cyber is such a big topic, right?
yeah.
And so we've created also as part of this some starter conversations, some starter social media content that you can put your logo on,
Yeah.
other talking points, other battle cards that they can use not only to talk to their current customer base, but also on what's going to get prospective companies to want to talk to them as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's super helpful. Okay, so let's get into kind of some of the eye-opening stuff sometimes, right? The actual, breaches or issues that you're seeing in small businesses out there.
Yeah.
And again, I think these are always great for us to hear because these are the examples, and you mentioned you probably have a lot of this in the collateral you're talking about, but these are the examples that we can use just to highlight to a business owner that it is worth it to spend the time to go through an assessment like this because here's what can happen.
Right.
So yeah, what are you guys seeing out there that you're dealing with small businesses?
Yep. So the majority of the attacks that we're seeing, and the calamity of those attacks comes from either business email compromise or spear phishing or phishing
Yep.
attacks in which they then manipulate something in order to either steal more data or to get into a bigger company or something like that. So business email compromise, supply chain attacks, you probably heard of those. Those are what we're seeing the most. And so I'll give you some real life examples. So there was a pool company that was brought to our attention that had been in business for 20 plus years. During COVID, everybody wanted a COVID pool up in the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
although they were looking at possibly retiring before COVID, all of a sudden, hey, they have a whole new business, right?
Yeah.
And so they with that pool company, when you're doing it, you paid half up front as a down payment and then half at the end, right? And so their email the owner had been compromised where he fell for a phishing attack. They took a complete copy of that owner's email box and was sitting in the middle and reading every single email, looking at all the invoices, seeing everything that's happening. And after most of the pools were done and it was time to do the second billing, the bad guy went in and recreated all the invoices and changed it and sent out an email without the owner knowing it that said, hey, we're no longer taking ACH payments. We are taking only wires, and
Oh,
resent every one of those invoices out. Right. And by doing that, it took at least 20 of those invoices to be paid by wire to the bad guy's place before somebody finally called the owner and said, I don't take wires, or I don't know how to do a wire. Like,
yeah.
why can't you just take a check from me like last time? I mean, and he's like, what do you mean? I didn't send an email that had any
Oh,
wire information in
wow.
it. And so then
His
that's when
stomach hit the floor too.
it hit the floor. It was
Oh,
at least a
man.
couple $100,000
Ugh.
of lost payments, due to an attack like that. So that's the story of both two things. One, doesn't matter the size of the business, they can
Yeah.
find a way to make serious dough. And that's why they're willing to go around the ring camera scenario, right? The second is that your email and your invoicing and your internet, that and your device itself all need to be monitored and managed because they're going to use multiple ways to try to get in and um, try to manipulate the situation and then take over, right?
Yep.
That's the first one. Here's another one that was very interesting, for those that are looking to sell their businesses, or you're in the business of helping businesses sell.
Yeah.
So we had a manufacturer that was brought to our attention that um, was 3 locations, multiple locations throughout the United States, but still yet pretty small, 50 to 100-ish employees. And they had been compromised about 6 months prior through a VPN connection. So through not through a secure internet portal, but through like a retail VPN connection, they were hacked and it got into the controller and they were able to get into the controller's whole environment, right? So they were able to get into the controller's email box, into all the access to the files that she had and everything. So what they typically would do in that one was they just try to, reroute some bank numbers and make some dollars. But this criminal had a bigger idea because it read in one of the emails that they were gathering information because they were going up for sale and there was a possible acquisition happening. So
Ah,
it's this bad guy's reading all the emails, setting itself up and waiting for the day that they were going to be acquired, that they were going to announce the sale on a Friday, have a big party, and then on Monday it was going to be the new company. Well, on Sunday night, the bad guy locked down the entire network and ran a ransomware against the entire organization, right? People are scrambling, they don't know what to do, right? There's all this going on. And these machines were down for days and days and days. And it took almost 60 days before the third machine was even a facility was even able to start getting up and running at
wow.
50%. So we're talking 1.2, $1.5 million in total damages it took to do between the forensics and all these different pieces. And this is still in court today, from my understanding of who's going to pay for it. Should it be the
Yeah.
acquiring company because they had already acquired it and now it's your problem? Or is it the seller because the seller should have known all along that there was this bad guy sitting in the background
Oh,
because
oh
they
my
identified how long
God.
it'd been there, right? So whose responsibility is it? And here's what I always say. It's everybody's responsibility.
Yeah.
As a small business owner, as a business owner, as professionals, we have to make sure that we have our eye on it because the CIA ain't coming to help us. The FBI isn't coming to help us. No one's coming to help us. We're
Yeah.
going to have to work together on making sure we can take care of the bad guys. So those are two examples of scary stories we saw in small to medium sized businesses.
Yeah, those are great examples, and I'm gonna put a couple pins in those, but I want to encourage everybody go back and re-listen to those because some of the best ways in any sales process to drive home the importance of whatever you're talking about is through stories, but they don't always have to be your stories. So go back and re-listen to those and write those stories down and get good at or repeating them so that you can use them as the example to your client. I think about if you have a contractor, they always like, I'm good. I don't need cyber. I'm not into a bunch of IT stuff. And that pool company is a great example, right? They would have never thought that that would be the case. And I'm sure they didn't think that they had a big high risk
Right.
of a cyber attack, right? And so use those examples as stories to help a client understand the impact that this could have. But I want to go back to the first one off the bat here because phishing attempts, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, are one of the easiest ways, let's say, or the highest probability ways for criminals to get access to our systems. What do you do about it? Like, what do you recommend? I mean, I know there's training and stuff, but talk through a little bit more. Like, because you can't prevent people from clicking on the link, right?
Right.
So you want them to you obviously want to have the right protocols in place, but also have the training and stuff. So what do you do to minimize the risk of phishing attempts?
Yeah, email threat protection software is the first thing that I would start with. So inbound filtering of all the emails that come into your organization. The one in particular that we uh, deploy to our customers or to your customers if you end up using our protocols, actually rewrites the links inside the emails, and they rewrite the links to go through our server and our firewalls, in our SOC and SIM before they go into the inbox, and they'll actually filter out. So if the email itself doesn't get filtered out for a malware attack, or if it looks like phishing or something like that, at least a lot of the links are rewritten. That way, if somebody tried to put a nefarious link in that email, then that's how you're going to be able to protect yourself from that standpoint of it. And of
Hmm.
course, right, although yes, multi-factor authentication doesn't always stop every attack. If you look at it this way, if you had email threat protection and you had the right multi-factor authentication involved, right? And if you had endpoint protection now and somebody watching it for you, now you can see where you're no longer relying on yourself or your employee to be thinking about every email, think about what they're clicking on, think about if something actually happened or not. You have other individuals out there helping you monitor that so that you can feel comfortable that you don't have to be your own security guard, right? Someone
Yeah.
else could do it. So that combination of that, what we call multi-layered cybersecurity, right? You had multi-factor authentication to get into it. You had email threat protection filtering it. You had links rewritten. Maybe you have a secure internet portal on your device itself so that you're monitoring what kind of internet, where the internet is, data leaving the internet off the computer, and endpoint protection looking for anomalies on the device. There, you have multiple layers, multiple things. That's where a bad guy's going to go, okay, that's too much for me to have to deal with. I'll go find somebody else that just has a
Yeah.
Ring camera, as an example. But the phishing attempts, the reason why they're getting better and better and better is they're using AI too,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So they're using AI. Our security suite's using AI, and now the AIs are battling the AIs, right? But
Yeah.
you still need a human being somewhere to be able to manage and monitor, okay, what's real and what's not from that standpoint of it. So if you think that phishing emails are getting good now, just wait until the bad guys figure out better protocol using some of these AI tools
Yeah.
to be able to try to trick and fool people.
Oh, totally. I mean, it scares the crap out of me that, um, and they're going to be able to do it at mass. I mean, I know they already can,
Right.
but like even
Right.
more massive because they can all do it through AI and customize it and all that. And so, yeah, that is very scary. But again, the biggest thing is having the right protocols in place. And I do think there's still probably truth in the fact of, if you're as buttoned up as you can be, there's going to be easier fish out there. And that still
Mhm.
probably deters a lot of attacks on your system and whatnot, or your client systems. And so it's good things to put in place. So let's talk. You talked a little bit of the dollar amounts, right? 1.2, 1.5 million in that one case,
Yep.
but what are some of the average dollar amounts or things that you're seeing when an attack happens? Because
Yep.
that's the other thing that is a big piece is people don't, I think, understand the actual impact that this can have. And I suppose it's not always dollar impacts, right? You mentioned a couple other impacts, lost customers, which leads to lost profits, but
Right.
just business downtime, reputation impact, all those things. So
Yep.
talk through just some of those you're seeing on small businesses.
Yeah. So let's talk about the business impact. So over 50% of breaches in 2023 to small businesses uh, led to loss of customers. That's a huge amount, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to, reason why is many times the customers are the ones that are turning the small business in, or they're the ones that are figuring it out. And so
Hmm.
they're losing customers. Like, I just can't trust the fact that if I got this spam email sent back to me from you, I just can't trust that you with my data, or I'm not going to get fooled, right?
Yeah.
The second biggest impact is the downtime. On average, 22 days of downtime. I
Oh,
don't know about many businesses, but being down 1 or 2 days, 22 days is a long, long
yeah.
time, especially if you're in a retail business or something where you're taking regular customers every single day. Like a golf course, we've seen it with
Yeah.
a golf course. We've seen it with a theater, um, things like that, right? What are you going to do if you can't send out a foursome that day or take any money? Or what are you going to do if, your ticketing system gets hacked and you
Yep.
have to put them on paper, things like that. And then you have so the average forensics plus remediation, which would mean, fixing the problem, getting rid of the bad guy, cleaning things up, it's going to cost you between 75 and 150 grand right now. Right. And so that's just the remediation part.
Hmm.
Now you're talking about, are there fines included? Do you have to pay a ransom? Do you have to do you have to, spend a bunch of money in other areas to like change out IT systems or fix
Yeah.
computer, or all these other pieces that might come along with it. Now you're talking 300, 350. We've seen them get as high as 3 million for a business um, under 100 employees. So that's starting to show you that's where the underwriters and that's where the cyber liability companies are like, okay, wait a minute, the coverage limits, the terms, what is what's a breach that we're responsible for versus
Yeah.
one that they did on, that, you know, the client did on their own because they turned off the MFA or they did something wrong. Right. So that's why this is starting to get those dollars and those downtimes and those lost customers, that's why this is becoming such an important topic, not only for the business owners themselves, but for the cyber liability companies.
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, you can understand why costs are going up, from the cyber side. I think it's twofold. The claims have gone up, but I also think we're realizing how inadequate our security systems are in a lot of businesses.
Right.
And the data is now showing to these insurance carriers what a good security protocol looks like and what
Right.
one that's not so good looks like. So they're going to
Right.
underwrite for it. And so
Right.
that's why it's so impactful. You have the right things in place, and then you can go get the right coverage at the right price. Um, so we're kind of coming up on time, so I want to make sure
Sure.
we get to anything else that you have on your mind. I mean, this is such a big topic, right? That's out there, but uh, anything we miss, number one, and then number two, for the insurance producers out there, what should they be thinking about today? And then how can they leverage you guys to, make a bigger impact other than what we've talked about, more specifically?
Sure. Um, ultimately what, if I could look an insurance agency owner or producer in the eye in over 2 minutes, what I would tell them is you are under attack, right? You are under siege. There's a looming threat sitting behind you that you aren't necessarily paying attention to right now that I want you to clearly pay attention. It's the cyber criminal, the compliance officer, and your competition are attacking you, right? They're
Yeah.
attacking you from a cyber criminal standpoint. They're right trying to get, you know, steal your data to lock you out, right? To make money off of you. The compliance officers are out there because they know that they're getting pressure for the consumers to start regulating this, to make sure that those that provide professional services to them, that are holding their data for them, need to start putting certain things in place. And your competition is starting to learn that, hey, we can drive more business talking about all these attacks that are going on. We can make more revenue as long if we're the one willing to have that risk management conversation, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable of talking about cybersecurity, even though you might not be an expert in it, but at least starting the conversation and partnering with an expert like CyberFin, right? To go along with you to have these conversations before your
Yeah.
competition does. The other thing that I'd like to, that I want you to think about is how many times have you seen somebody needing to have fire insurance, right? Does that mean that they don't put the smoke detectors in, the suppression systems in, the right, making sure that there's fire extinguishers around in a fire plan, right? They still have that, even though they have
Yeah.
fire insurance.
Yep.
Cybersecurity is no different. The cyber liability insurance, 100%, they need to have it, right? But if they should be spending the time, your business owners should be spending the time to put in the right side, the right endpoint protection, the right email protection, the more internet protection, making sure that they have the right, fire plan. Just like there's a fire plan, there's a cybersecurity plan that they can have, so that when something happens, they can severely lower the impact of an event, right? So the reason why we have those things is, yes, there still may be damage if there's a fire, but think of how less the damage is,
Yeah.
right? Trying to give you an analogy other
That's a
than
good analogy.
cybersecurity and
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
it's complicated like technology. Look, this is a simple analogy that we can try to come up with, is saying, hey, you plan on having fire, you need to have fire insurance anyways, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have a smoke detector, right?
Yeah.
And we want to be able to do the same thing in the cybersecurity world.
Yeah. Well, it's a great example because everybody, or it gets driven a lot that, oh, I have insurance, right? And that's enough. And I can't stress it, it's even outside of cyber. We could go through a fire example as well, but insurance isn't enough to potentially keep a business afloat. Meaning, if you have let's say a massive fire that burns down your building, again using a non-cyber example, you might have the perfect uh, insurance in place. It's going to cover your loss of income. It's going to get your building rebuilt or pay to have it rebuilt. But let's say that, we just had a tornado come through Omaha. Let's say it's going to
Sure.
take twice the amount of time to rebuild your building. Well, insurance might only pay for 12 months of that, and again, maybe it pays for all of it, but what happens to your customers over 2 years? Are they going to go find a new supplier? Are you going to have contracts when they come back? So your building gets rebuilt, you get repaid that income, but your top 5 people left because they didn't really know how they were going to get paid. And
Mhm.
then, so what I'm saying is you didn't have any of the protocols in place to manage everything other than the insurance in that case. And, it severely impacts or bankrupts the business, right?
Right.
Well, cyber is much more apparent in this case, right? Because again, let's assume that you've got good cyber policies, but your business is down for 22 days. Like, can you sustain that? And
Right.
is a big client at risk of leaving? And if, and all these things can come into play. And again, you might have the right insurance in place. So again, that's one risk management technique that we need to utilize. But we also need to utilize the other risk management techniques that are available to us. So I echo everything that you just walked through. So if somebody out there wants to get a hold of you guys, how can they get a hold of you to learn more about CyberFin, what they can be doing for clients, et cetera?
Yep. Yeah, no problem. So, um, cyberfin.net is our website. We have a lot of information on there that you can download or that you can review, just to better understand who CyberFin is. There's plenty of places to contact us and get a hold of us. There's a free assessment in there that you can do for yourself or your agency. That way you can get used to the same cyber assessment that you'll be giving to your small business clients.
Yeah.
Protect me at cyberfin.net is another good way of getting a hold of us. And again, you can find me on LinkedIn as Daniel Metcalf. I love talking about cybersecurity. I love talking about customers. I love talking about how we can help grow agencies around technology. So feel free to connect with me on there, and we'll have a conversation and figure out the best way for me to help you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I would encourage everybody to at least reach out and learn more, because this is probably one of the simplest ways that you can bring a ton of, excuse me, a ton of additional value to your clients, and not have to be the expert, not have to, invest in a lot of things. And so take advantage of it. And this is a way that you can certainly position yourself as more of that advisor. So, thanks for the time, man. This was
Yeah,
great.
thanks for having me.
I think everybody's gonna take away a lot of interesting information. So, we will catch everybody next week.